Have you ever gone to the movies with high hopes for the film you're about to see, only to be sorely disappointed when you leave? A range of factors can play a role in a film's inability to meet its own expectations. And today, we are looking at the top 10 movies that overpromised and sucked. Number 10, Contact by Robert Zemeckis. Contact is a 1997 science fiction drama film directed by Robert Zemeckis and based on Carl Sagan's 1985 novel of the same name. With Forrest Gump, which won an Academy Award in 1994, Robert Zemeckis and his cinematographer Don Burgess took a risk. It's understandable that spectators were intrigued by the notion of these two collaborating once more on a film about humans' first contact with aliens. Despite some brilliant cinematic tricks in a midsection involving trans-zone space travel, Contact failed to impress for a number of reasons. The melodrama that dragged the plot out and the harmless sentimentality that pervaded the film's end message were the least of the film's flaws. Aside from Zemeckis' Burgess issue, the film had a fascinating premise, a respectable cast led by Jodie Foster, James Woods, and John Hurt. It's a pity because the film has so much going on for it. Number 9, Eragon by Stephen Fangmeyer. Eragon is the first book in the series of the Inheritance Cycle by Christopher Paolini, a brilliant fantasy novel writer. When one of the world's most famous books, particularly one as epic as Eragon, is set to be adapted into a film, fans can be guilty of overhyping it even in our own thoughts. It doesn't exactly help when the film's advertising campaign feeds into our high expectations. While it may seem simple to construct a film with a pre-existing plot, this has its own set of problems. And in order to address those problems, the Eragon film's creator opted to depart significantly from the source material. Part of this was due to the fact that the producers purchased the story's rights but did not devote nearly enough funding to the production to accommodate the huge world created by author Christopher Paolini. Each book was massive, with the first weighing in at over 500 pages regardless of whatever edition you read. While all literary adaptations removed some of the original material, Eragon's producers took a chainsaw to it, removing crucial elements such as Eragon's raising Saphira and the idea that the Urugals are their own monster species rather than just people with painted faces. Number 8, Alien 3 by David Fincher. Alien 3 is a science fiction horror film directed by David Fincher and written by David Giller that was released in 1992. In the film industry, a sequel that lives up to the original's legacy is a rare occurrence. It's practically unheard of for a sequel to outperform its original. However, Aliens, the second installment of the Aliens trilogy, managed to do just that in the eyes of many critics and audiences in 1986. Unfortunately, the formula only worked once for the franchise, and in the case of Alien 3 from 1992, it may have contributed to the film's eventual failure. The massive and unexpected success of Alien sparked moviegoers' interest in the next chapter of the story, but they were profoundly disappointed. Its pacing was excessively sloppy, and it had a too many cooks in the kitchen problem, according to one critic. To put it another way, it's a triumph that the film is enjoyable at all. Number 7, Total Recall by Paul Verhoeven. Total Recall is a science fiction action film directed by Paul Verhoeven and starring Arnold Schwarzenegger that was released in 1990. After directing the satirical RoboCop in 1987, Dutch director Paul Verhoeven became hugely popular. Aside from the fact that this violent and funny action here was really damn terrific, Verhoeven had already made a few films in the Netherlands, indicating that he was a serious filmmaker. This is one of the reasons why when this $65 million turkey was first launched, expectations were sky high, especially because it starred Arnold Schwarzenegger. Unfortunately, the combination of these two abilities failed to deliver an action-packed rollercoaster experience. Number 6, Transcendence by Wally Pfister. Transcendence is a science fiction thriller directed by Wally Pfister and written by Jack Paglen that was released in 2014. Transcendence was a film that claimed to be as revolutionary as its lead, Johnny Depp, who played a scientist who was previously working on the Singularity. The Singularity is thought to be a point at which artificial intelligence becomes sentient enough to evolve on its own, capable of exponentially developing and transcending even beyond the intelligence of the humans who created it. It was perhaps a touch too ambitious, and with Johnny Depp and Morgan Freeman in the lead roles, the production may have become a little too smug for its own good. According to Deadline, the film's failure was due in part to the script's complexity, while also being derivative. It was filled with pretentious intellectual notions that lacked substance or character plot development to back them up. Number 5, The Day After Tomorrow, Roland Emmerich. Roland Emmerich directed, co-produced, and co-wrote The Day After Tomorrow, a 2004 American science fiction catastrophe film. Roland Emmerich had proven to create a blockbuster with 1996's anti-logic Independence Day, and to a lesser extent the not-so-popular 1998 remake of Godzilla, before creating this global warming climate change disaster film. It's no surprise that the impending introduction of TDAT in 2004 sparked a lot of excitement. The problem was that the marketing tactic overused all the film's carnage scenes. It also featured a ridiculous scenario about a bunch of youngsters who were trapped in a New York library during the Big Freeze, with one of their fathers coming to their rescue. Number 4. The Golden Compass by Chris Weitz. The Golden Compass is a fantasy adventure film from 2007. It is based on Philip Pullman's trilogy His Dark Materials, which began with the 1995 novel Northern Lights. When it comes to fantasy, this Dark Materials deviates from the norm, focusing more on notions like religion, truth, and sentient human souls embodied by animals than on wizards and dragons. Chris did everything he could to make a fantastic promise. That's why the fact that something spectacular didn't happen is so tragic. The Golden Compass was widely panned for its departures from the book, which includes a significantly more pleasant adaptation that omitted the book's basic anti-religious tone as well as a tragic conclusion. Number 3. King Arthur: The Legend of the Sword by Guy Ritchie. Guy Ritchie's epic fantasy action-adventure film King Arthur: Legend of the Sword was released in 2017. When the movie was released in theaters, it was one of the biggest box office flops. Hunnam felt thoroughly immersed in the feeling of trying to market that film after 6 weeks on the road and promotional tours. The film was expected to be one of the summer's most popular blockbusters. The expectation, on the other hand, was for a whole picture, not an origin narrative. It was designed to establish a multi-movie universe, but it made the mistake of relying so heavily on future installments that it neglected to provide much of the character's backstory in the first one. Perhaps because it lacked its queens, the picture lost a kingdom's worth of money against its $175 million budget. Number 2. The Last Airbender by M. Night Shyamalan. M. Night Shyamalan wrote, co-produced, and directed The Last Airbender, a 2010 American action-adventure fantasy film. Avatar: The Last Airbender, which aired on Nickelodeon from 2005 to 2008, defined a generation and is widely regarded as one of the best animated series of all time. There are some huge shoes to fill after the show. The 2010 film adaptation, on the other hand, chose to go barefoot, ignoring everything from character names to aesthetics and the effect of bending. The show's entire premise is based on a supernatural capacity to violently manipulate the fundamental elements of nature, but all we see in the film is a couple puffs of smoke. The live-action adaptation, on the other hand, felt strained and unnatural throughout, maybe as a way of overcompensating for the uninteresting martial arts and bending scenes. One of the most common criticisms for the film was that it essentially whitewashed everything. And number 1, The Goldfinch by John Crowley. Some may have already guessed why. The Goldfinch is a 2019 American drama film directed by John Crowley and based on a 2013 novel of the same name by Peter Strawn. The Goldfinch received a Pulitzer Prize for fiction, so there's no way to claim the plot isn't good. The cinematic adaptation, on the other hand, received a dismal 24% from critics. For starters, the novel is about 800 pages long, implying that it had to be whittled down considerably to fit within the 149-minute running time of the film. The film intended to bring these issues to its audiences with a marketing effort that cost more than the film's budget, yet it reportedly failed to accomplish so. Also, it isn't just any other novel either. It explores themes of pain and survival as well as art and hope via the lens of a young boy's coming of age. And with that, we will be ending the video right here. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Goodbye, and we'll see you guys on our next video.